Welcome to Oasis, Tribe with the Vibes, where we lift up the spirit and open our minds. Wellness, reflection, empowerment, joy, healing together. Your soul will enjoy. Hosted by Netta, let the journey begin. Authentic on the vibes, bringing light from within.
Welcome, tribe. Thank you for joining today's conversation. You ever had that moment where your gut is saying one thing, but the world around you says something else? That's what we're talking about today. Faith in motion. Okay. Our guest, Erica Noelle, is someone who walks the walk, a woman guided by her inner light. Erica reminds us that trusting ourselves is one of the most radical acts of healing we can do. Today's conversation is all about spiritual wellness, listening when your spirit speaks, and finding power in your own voice. So take a breath, settle into this vibe, and let's get into it. Let's welcome Erica, everyone.
Hi.
So wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
It has always been a warmth with you from the moment that I met you. And I'm just, I said this upon our first conversation, like the excitement within me to have this conversation with you feels so divine that I believe my soul is excited. My higher self is excited because I do feel like this conversation is going to carry me to a new place spiritually. And I hope that it does the same for anyone who's listening or viewing. So, tribe, listen. We're stepping into that kind of energy that requires courage,
Yes.
big surrender, and big faith. And she said this before, when life says no, but your spirit says go. I've been reading that and repeating that over and over since the moment I read that in your Substack. And your entries are so soft, are so vulnerable, and courageous. You speak of things that I only write in my journal. And so I think that's why I've always felt the need to tell you how much your words have helped me, because you've been showing me in action what going with the flow and allowing divine to lead you to really looks like. And that essence of like graceful temperance. I want that so bad.
I don't
And
have it all the time, by the way.
I'm excited for the audience to join this conversation on spiritual wellness, intuition, and strength. So my first question off the rip is, what started you on this journey? How did you find yourself on this path?
Good question. So I realize I've always been naturally curious about spirituality, finding myself, how to live harmoniously with life. I've been doing it since like my early 20s. Um, and what I've noticed is there's been a shift. So before I would do a retreat or, do a fasting retreat, a yoga retreat, kind of looking for that magic pill solution so that when I go back to my real life, like everything is going to be wonderful, rosy. This is who I am now. And of course, like 48 to 72 hours later, it's like I'm back in that like gloopy mess of like, I don't want my life to be like this. So I've been like curious for a long time. And the biggest shift for me is that now when I do something deeply spiritual, I'm not doing it for like to change my life. I'm doing it to live with life in a harmonious way. Um, and I was actually writing about this last week, and I realized it's because after a retreat or reading a really good book, like we're so fired up. We're so like, yes. But then
Yes.
committing to that change that we want, committing to that practice really requires commitment. It requires showing up differently, showing up in the same situation and responding in a different way. And that's challenging. And that for me was like the missing link. So now I really try to think about, okay, what's important to me spiritually, values wise, everything. And what does it mean to live by that, to operate, from that place? And then when I'm challenged, it's not a bad thing. It's giving me an opportunity to like kind of drop in and then act from that, more grounded place.
Yes. Describe for us what your first meditation was like.
Mm.
Remember.
Wanting to do it right, like, straight A student, I'm going to like get a passing grade in meditation. Every time my mind would wander, I'm like, Erica, no, get back. You know what I mean? Like being really harsh and critical with myself. Um, yeah. And then also kind of being disappointed because sometimes meditation, you're not really getting anything like beautiful. I've had meditations where like, I would be like going through some really tough stuff. And so, yeah, that first meditation was like, I need to do it right. And now it's like the experience is right, like no matter how I show up in a meditation.
Yes, absolutely. I think hearing you now that our spiritual journeys are completely different. My household was very religious and I asked for it. I believe I was 8 when I asked my mother to take us to church. I felt like
Mm,
I didn't want to go to hell, even as a little kid. And so I was like, we should go to church. And she took that very seriously out of the mouth of
mm,
babes, right? So she was like, okay, we're going to start going to church. And we took that very seriously. But unfortunately, after countless times of what we like to call church hurt or just disappointments with the figureheads, because I should not have been putting them on the pedestal that I put them on in the first place. However, it led me to my own spiritual journey after realizing that I shouldn't put my faith in the leaders of the church, but in my personal journey with God, Spirit, Holy Spirit. That's when I realized it was more about my own personal connection. And yes, I knew that church teaches you that to have your own personal relationship with God. But for some reason, I still was putting what my pastor preached about, what the bishop may come and say for a season ahead of everything that I felt in my soul, in my tuition, right? In my
mm,
intuition. And it was then that I decided to leave the institution of church and religion. I cannot recall how, but something led me to meditation. And a lot of it stemmed from teaching, being stressed out, wanting to lower my heart rate, find my calm. And I didn't realize that in that quiet, I could hear spirit more clearly.
mm,
The less I was thinking, the more I was in solace, the more I prayed, the more I quieted myself. A light bulb clicks inside of me. And it truly did lead me down a pathway of understanding my ancestry and where meditative practice come from. What does it mean to be in my divine feminine? What does that mean to understand who I am and what my voice sounds like, what my intuition feels like, and paying attention to those nudges and signs and actually using them to my advantage. And so
mm.
it took me a long time. It was a long journey, but I'm so glad that I've gotten here because I do feel a stronger personal connection with spirit.
Mm. Yeah, what really resonates, because I also grew up in a Black Baptist church.
Mm,
And so that's kind of my spiritual formation started there. Um, and kind of went through to like maybe my first year of practicing law. Um, and then I kind of stepped away, and that's when I began to explore other things. And it's interesting now that I'm back in Virginia. I've had a life everywhere, but I joined a church when I came, and I felt like for me, church was not initially kind of answering those questions for me. Like, for example, like, why do Black people believe in God? If, before God, we were in Africa, you know what I mean? All those things, like all those questions that I had, and never feeling like I had a satisfactory answer. And then also feeling like it's very like indicting. So if you want God to bless you, you need to do this, 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 and this, And so I did walk away because it really just, troubled my nervous system,
Yes.
And it's interesting though that now that I'm back, I realize I'm happy that I went to a Black Baptist church before. There was a seed planted in me. And so now when I go to church, I approach it so differently, So, like you said, I know my pastor is flawed. I know that he's not perfect. And I see the sense of community, like I love that kind of embracing community. So kind of just being able to see it all and not label it as like good or bad has been really helpful. And I think my spiritual journey and looking at other things helps me approach Christianity in a more flexible way,
More flexible way. I have my mom and I have been on this wavelength of like mingling our spiritualism with our faith, with our Baptist teachings, like all in one. And I love this amalgamation of repeating the scriptures while I'm meditating, or I, the way that we've been able to create something that feels like a mutt of spiritual practices, but it feels great to my soul, just reminds me of the different ways our ancestors had to figure it out, and turn it into something that was accessible and attainable for all of us, right? And so I think that we are trailblazing a new path, and I'm excited for that. And so this spiritual conversation just adds to that. And
Okay.
to think that we started at such humble beginnings, that those seeds, to the point of the scriptures, we have never departed from that
Right.
upgrading and that training. And so I appreciate that, because it does really guide me, and it has sculpted the person that I am.
I had
Speaking
a
of,
question.
go for
I
it.
wanted to ask, so I grew up in a Black Baptist, missionary Baptist specifically. Um, and most of the people that were leaders in the church were related to me. Like we kind of broke off of a bigger church and kind of created a smaller church. And literally the pastor was my uncle. The first lady was my dad's sister. So it was church has always been community based first for me. Um, and so it's just interesting when I got older and kind of went to a mega church, and the community sense there was completely different. The structure there was completely different. And at that time, I was pregnant with my son and wanting to get him baptized and all of those things. And the way they structure it there, they had more restrictions on requirements for baptisms for unwed mothers and their child. So that kind of struck me a little close to home, especially growing up in a more familial church, and they would baptize you, as soon as the baby say they can walk up there and confess that they want to follow Christ. So it was just, when you spoke about community, that just brought that to my attention. I went to a very familiar church, then I went to a mega church, and then I went back to a smaller, more community based church, very um, multicultural, and community there was completely different than the other two. So just interesting to see community in those different aspects within the
Yeah.
Black community or within multicultural communities.
And I really think the Black church, I mean, that is one thing that we do really well. So on my mom's side, I have a lot of roots in like Alabama. And there was like the migration from Alabama to like Ohio to work in the factories. And, my mom's church, Second Calvary, that is a church that was a place of communion and community for people that had moved from the South to Ohio. And it was almost like being able to drop into like a family already when you're kind of like displacing yourself. They speak so proudly of that. And I didn't really appreciate it before. Even like things like civil rights movement, like all these things. And or even getting food, like feeding people. I never appreciated it, I think, till recently. Like I was like, that's actually quite important because we all want to belong somewhere.
Yes.
Belonging is super important to us. So yeah.
I believe that's the main reason why Authentic and I created this space, because we missed that community, right? We missed eating together, talking about our growth, spiritually or not. And some of my closest friends were from church, or from youth group, or oh my gosh, just to think about those folks and where we are today. Our roots are still there. However, we've taken several paths to get to where we are now, and I appreciate that. Why have you chosen to come on to OTWV with us, given your private life and humble beginnings?
Yeah, well, first because you asked me. um, but what made me say yes to your invitation? Right?
Still so great that you said yes.
Yeah, because I felt like, we were really vibing in our conversation. And so I kind of like, how do I say this? Okay, I like being a part of a community as well. And for me, I realized like for me, spirituality and like life are all intertwined.
Yes.
And so any opportunity to connect with someone who, gets that and then wants to like share that, message with others, I'm all for it, so I can do it through writing, which that's like my normal way that I do that. But I was like, just say yes to the podcast, your first one, it's okay. Like, it's like if you're vibing with Netta, go for it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What's a lesson that life has had on repeat for you until you finally got it?
That's a good one. Boundaries, like setting really healthy boundaries. And I prided myself for so long on being agreeable, adaptable, the yes person, just smile and white knuckle your way through it. You know what I mean? Like, and I took pride in that, a lot of pride in
Yeah.
being the easy one. But I feel like I was paying a price all the time because I was nervous all the time about wanting to be seen as right and good. I feel like I never got like the feedback. I would get positive feedback, but it was never enough. You know what I mean? Something always kind of felt off. And then my body was letting me know by you just kind of like opening up the borders of who you are and saying yes to everything. I'm going to give you eczema. I'm going to make your hair fall out. Like all those things, those chronic things that we develop. And it was surprising to me how I just kind of normalized that as like my reality,
Yes.
And then when I began to put boundaries, my skin cleared up.
Huh.
And first, it's like a pendulum, right? So first I was putting boundaries, like putting dynamite to whatever I didn't like. I was screaming, I was kind of trying to set boundaries and you don't know how to first, or I didn't know how to first. So I kind of was like super triggered and by everything. And so after going through that and realizing, oh, nobody's really listening to me, because who likes to be yelled at? I'm like kind of finding my way back to this happy medium where I can set a boundary with love. I can think about it, so I don't just say yes anymore. I can kind of sit with it and then respond in a way that I feel is respectful to the other, respectful to me. And so when I talk about kind of like wanting to make those changes, like I realize my life will not improve until I learn how to set healthy boundaries.
Yes.
And setting healthy boundaries is going to be super uncomfortable at first because I'm not used to it. You know what I mean? But I realize like that's kind of like the ticket to entry of this life that I want. So just really being more intentional about setting healthy boundaries.
No is a complete sentence. saying, no, I can't do it, I can't make it, that I don't have the capacity, are all healthy ways of setting boundaries. As someone else who also struggled with people pleasing, you burn yourself out on both ends. And then when you're looking for the same people that you've been pleasing or doing things for or burning yourself out over aren't doing the same for you, when they can see that you are stressed out, losing your hair, gaining weight, losing weight, whatever the signs are, when your community that is also pulling on you isn't also helping, that's when you know the boundary needs to be set for my own peace, for my own healing, for my own growth. And quite frankly, when we each have healthy boundaries, we grow so much better. We all thrive when we have healthier boundaries because we're teaching each other that we don't have to say yes to everything. And in fact, we shouldn't say yes to everything. We should be honest about what we can and can't do and what our capacity is. Because I won't say what we can't do. There are some things we can do, but I don't have the capacity,
Yes.
the
Just because you can
time,
doesn't mean you have to.
wherewithal to do it. Yes, I need to
Yeah.
rest. So because my rest is essential, I'm going to pause. And I found my biggest spiritual transformations and growths when I take the time to rest, when I actually take the time to listen to myself and
Yeah.
see who I'm growing into, see who I am becoming.
If you've been craving peace, clarity, and a little more you time, this is your sign. Synergy Oasis is where wellness meets intention. Holistic Core is our way of helping you align your mind, nurture your body, and protect your energy, one ritual at a time. From empowering decks to reflective journals, that feels like a deep exhale. Plus, stay tuned with our wellness podcast, Oasis Try with Vibes, where healing is real and growth is a lifestyle. Shop Synergy Oasis Holistic Core or subscribe to our meditations on Substack. Together, we grow and thrive. Find out more at synergyoasis4u.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny what you say. I think it's like a natural human condition to like when we set a boundary, wanting to explain it and justify it and want the other people to be like, I'm saying no, but because of this, like we do like a whole dissertation on like why we're saying no or why we're putting a boundary, Because I do that too sometimes. And I caught myself yesterday. I was talking to my sister. I'm like a hard no on something. And she was kind of like pushing back, not in like a bad way, but in a loving way. And I found myself like explaining. And then I called her back and I said, Ariel, first, thank you for challenging me on that because I realized I could sit with your challenge. And also, I have just realized that my no was enough. So anything I said after, you know what I mean, was like gravy, but like my no is healthy. Um, and for me, because I tend to get overwhelmed, because I tend to like burn out, um, it's kind of like having to change my relationships because I can say no, knowing that I can burn out, knowing the cost to me, my body, my psyche, my mind. And so only I can understand that. Nobody else can. And they don't have to. I don't expect them to. But for me, self-honoring is to kind of say, yeah, Erica, like we don't want to go through this. You know what I mean? Because we know the cost to you if you say yes.
Yes. Yes. And most times, I'm just going to be honest, if I've said yes to something and the moment comes or the day comes and my spirit just does not feel aligned with it anymore, I need to learn that it's okay to be like, I changed my mind. And I'm sorry, not sorry. Like I have to get okay with being at that place.
Yeah, my grandmother always used to say a woman has every right to change her mind. And I always just kind of like took it as like okay, grandma, you know what I mean? But now I know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Like she was saying, like if you're not aligned with your spirit, don't fight your spirit. Like, you know what I mean? Go with that. And there is a consequence, of course, you know what I mean? You might get pushed back or whatever. And so I feel like it's also increasing, like at least my capacity to pay the price of a no, like, being black sheeped, or just kind of being told I'm wrong, or, but you said yes yesterday, and, now you're causing me a lot of problems. I know. But if I actually do this, I'm going to actually create a bigger problem for me and you, because I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, yeah, we have a right to change our mind. We need to be responsible, of course, but we can change our mind. That's okay.
We need to normalize it being okay, because us enforcing boundaries shouldn't end relationships. It should be okay. We should accept folks for who they are and their wholeness, and say, okay, it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna, figure it out, whatever the case may be. But we, as a community, I feel, aren't normalizing hearing no and saying no. So when someone does, it's over with. Now we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, and now I'm risking losing a healthy relationship just because I'm choosing to choose myself first.
Yes.
And I used to be so afraid of losing relationships because I choose myself first, but I love myself more than anybody else. So I need to make that decision for me every time, without the without the fear of losing a relationship. And that's where I feel is my growth thing in this area,
I love it. I just wrote like a piece on Substack, Meet Me at My New Place. And it is really about that. It is about, growing, understanding that there will be a loss or a transformation in relationships. And it's really scary,
Yes.
And I've been working through that for a couple of months. And I realized, like, no, Erica, like, as you expand into this new you, like, who is meant to be with you will find a way to stay with you.
Oh my gosh, alignment.
Alignment. And something, because there's a grieving process too, because relationships, shift.
Oh, Erica, you are hitting all the points right now.
My godmother loves to say, you're in the third heaven right now.
Yeah, because the grieving is a whole thing, but grieving someone that is still with you, that you can still that you could still have access to, but you have to cut them off for the betterment of you, is a deep pain that I have went through. Like, that was my 2024 thing that I had to release. I couldn't bring it into this year. Like, grieving someone that 20 years plus, like, you knew me before and till now, you know what I mean? So grieving that in a different way than someone that has passed on. It's like I can still honor that person and think about all the good times, but when it's someone that's still alive and like the connection was severed because of something negative, it just, it just hits a little different. You have so many positive memories, but it ended in such a, sad or not the way you would hope, at least for the duration and the the depth of the friendship, like how deep. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm curious why you're crying.
When my friends
holding back
tears, it makes me emotional because I know what she's, describing, and I myself am fine. However, to hear her articulate in this way just makes me emotional for my friend, and personally, I think it does take some deep courage to move forward when you thought that person was going to be by your side. And again, for solely the reason of maintaining a healthy boundary for yourself is the reason we're no longer in relation with each other. It's crazy to me. You should want anyone to have a healthy bond with themselves, to know themselves enough to know, if I come out with you, even though I won't come out with you, some gonna break off, and then we both got to be messed up. How should you just accept that I can't make this, and it's better off that I don't, or whatever the case may be, where you're holding a boundary for yourself should be okay, no matter the relationship, and it should continue. But when it doesn't, that's a pain that I just think, takes some time to heal. And I feel for her, because the void of that person that again you thought was going to be there takes a toll. And it's in this moment that I hope myself and my friend are learning to surrender to divine as well, because to your point, we know that we're being divinely directed. We know that we're being called to do this, and we will lose folks because of it. We have to be okay with losing folks because of it, because what's to come is going to be greater than what we lost. And it's hard not focusing on the loss when you're in it, Erica. When you're in the middle of it, or when you're at the precipice of a breakthrough, or at the precipice of the door that you know is due to open for you, and you just can't see the path forward. And that's when, of course, your faith has to kick in again, your trust and what have you, and you go back to your roots and you go back to what kept you going. But it's hard not to acknowledge them when they are live and in
Yeah,
company.
I'm really fascinated by that like liminal in between space, because, and that's why you're so courageous, authentic, because it's almost like you're letting go of what like no longer works without being really clear about like what's like to come. You know, this is it really is a faith walk. And I know that feeling, and it's so uncomfortable. And there's self-doubt. Like I've experienced self-doubt and having to remind myself, no, Erica, there was a reason, you know what I mean? You know, there's a reason why you're holding this boundary. And then you talked about meditation, and I realized meditation's kind of about that, because you're kind of like focused on that pause between the in and the out, that like teeny, 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 tiny space, you know, the space, and then breathe out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's where all the magic is.
Yes.
You know?
That gray space. It's hard to be in that gray area, that in between. But yeah, I've come to learn more. Like I feel like I have a tattoo that says new beginning, and it's 2/22/22, and it was the day after I kind of finished the required part of the required part of a mental health journey that I was on. And so since then, I've like, meditation has been a hard one for me. I have ADHD, so sitting still is not a favorite of mine. So I learned to do it in other ways, like listening to something, music without words, music with words, to like really guide my thoughts and where my headspace is. But I feel like some things are a little bit harder when they bring up reminders, especially in this social media driven world. People will go very far lengths to get in contact with you. And I've experienced that, and that has been a very like me stepping away from social media. I have a very tailored view of my life that people see. And so to know me is to know me, and to connect with me is to connect with me. So, yeah, just thinking about all of that, I've learned to be okay with those moments. And sometimes I've set dates like, this day I will give up this. I will no longer feel anything for this, and like literally believe it. People say it's Delulu land, but I live in Delulu land. It's my personal safe space, and I love it. So I will think and believe anything that will keep me in my most healthiest space, whole space all around. So if that means just believing that you were here in my life for a time, you taught me a lesson, and I have to take those things on and move to the next chapter of my life. And and the crazy thing about it is, I asked for this. I asked to find my tribe, my village, the people that can know me for me, and not a very one-sided or unreciprocal relationship. So
What I
that's
love,
what I've been drawing. So thank
yeah,
you.
what I love is that you are finding a way that works for you. So you're saying, okay, meditation is not my jam. Let me find something. Let me go into my Delulu land. I think you have every right to do that. And I realize like spirit does not want us to be uncomfortable. Like spirit is not saying we must meditate every day or pray every day. And so I'm hoping that I love that you're giving yourself permission to find your way. to find your way into spirituality, to find your way in connection and all of that. Because we can get like really rigid about what we need to do to have a breakthrough. And so that's really inspiring to me that you find your way, you know, what works for you.
Speaking of fighting against the odds, Erica, many people, including myself, lose faith when things don't go as planned, especially when things don't go as planned. Even though I've been praying along with my sister to go with the flow. I don't know why I did that. I should never have said that, because ever since then, it feels like I'm in a raging raft, and I have to have faith that in this raging raft, I am going to land on the shore somewhere safely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be tossed over into this raging river. However, let me not digress. What does faith in yourself look like when the path isn't clear and the odds seem impossible?
It's my world the past couple of years. For me, I realized that I'm not looking for like the big outcome. I'm looking for hints of like I'm on the right path, because it's a very lonely journey. And a lot of it is so internal that like we're making choices and doing things that are like coming from like a very quiet place.
Yes.
And so I'm learning how to like make myself more sensitive and aware to like those little teeny tiny like nudges and signs that let me know I'm okay. Like meeting you, for example, you know, like it's kind of like I had to do this, this, and this to meet Netta, to be here, to share my Substack, you know? And it's almost like the more we can kind of really celebrate those little moments, I call them divine breadcrumbs, the easier it is, you know?
Absolutely. That's exactly why I put my hand on my heart, because I was thinking like I wouldn't have met you if I hadn't followed a divine breadcrumb. And it's absolutely true. And so I love that you said that. When did you first realize your inner voice was something you could trust? Because I was questioning, but before you and I dived into our first space together, I was questioning whether I actually belonged in that space. I didn't feel as if I had done the work for real to feel like I had earned a space in that room, but to be welcomed in such a way that I was. And like I said then, it was warm. I was boo. I told you all things that I had never told strangers before. And I felt as comfortable to do that than I ever have felt. And I believe that if I had not listened to my intuition, I wouldn't have done it. But if I had listened to the critic in my mind, if I had listened to any doubts that I had, we wouldn't be here right now. And so I am thankful for those small wins and those small steps that do lead to miracles. And so again, how did you first realize that your inner voice was something, or your intuition was something that you could trust?
I feel like life sometimes makes it so that you have to, like, you know, like I've done everything quote unquote right. I've said the right things, and my life is still either uncomfortable or things are still falling apart, you know? And so I think when that happens, it's kind of like, all right, gotta just, you know, start from scratch and listen to that voice. And so life has put me on the floor in some really significant ways over the past 2 years or so. But it's like in that space when I'm like on the floor crying out to God, like, I don't know what to do. This little voice comes, you know? And so I wish it didn't have to be that way. Like I wish, you know, we could just be like, get our happily ever after and live in bliss. But I realized like, yeah, life just kept saying, if you keep doing this, you're not going to get what you want. And you're just going to like waste more energy. You're going to do more damage to your interpersonal relationships. So let's just try something different. And then it's so funny because I was meditating and then I was writing. And what came to me was the idea of a divine contract. And the divine contract basically was me literally like on the floor having a crying session. And then I just heard follow me. And I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? You know? And it was like, and then I heard, do you trust me? And I was like, what does that mean? To trust you? But you know what I mean? But it was kind of like saying, I thought it was spirit saying, I'm here for you. and with you. But the contract is you have to listen to me,
Yes.
you know?
And
And
let me in.
sorry.
And open a space to let me in, right? We have to
Right.
welcome.
Like
That's what
you're trying to like have your hand on all of the controls, and I'm asking you to just like stop. So yeah, that's kind of what it was. Life put me on the floor, but that's where I really connected with spirit, when I was on the floor, you know?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Same. Um, every time I am before my altar or, before spirit, I'm always brought to mind how I was on the floor my junior year of high school, flailing my arms and my legs. And I wanted to go to Florida so bad to be involved in a school trip with my band. It was huge for me. And we didn't have enough to afford to take me to go. But I just knew if I had prayed hard enough, if if I had prayed hard enough and my faith was strong enough, I was gonna go. And so I'm telling you, I am on the floor wailing, I gotta go, I just gotta go. And I went. You hear me? And I went, and it was a fabulous time. I will never take that trip back. This is the only time I've ever been to Orlando Studios. And it was a trip of a lifetime. Do you hear me? However, I don't know the exact details about how my parents got the money, but they did. And I went. And I always knew that I had strong faith. I always knew that I was meant to be someone who carried strong faith and strong presence. It's just the times where your faith is stretched, when you're transforming, when you are growing, that, again, we've talked about that gray area where you're like, it was my faith strong? What? I mean, are you sure you're not testing my faith? What is this? This feels like I am failing the test, but you keep telling me I'm not failing the test. I just have to live and go through this and learn what I'm learning.
Hey, I'm Authentic. Authentic Capsule is my videography editor and producer name. I decided to make my long-term hobby of being behind the camera my business. I love being on sets of a podcast taping or taking pictures for a good family friend. Book Authentic Capsule so I can
I'm
capture you.
learning. Is there a time where trusting your intuition led you somewhere where unexpected, but you were absolutely meant to be there? And if so, what did you learn? What did you take from that?
Unexpected.
I love when my questions stump people and they have to
Yeah,
think,
gotta
because
think
that
about
means
this
it's going to
one.
be so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Um, I guess one unexpected thing that I feel like it's always following that nudge, right?
Mhm.
So I was living in London, practicing law, and a friend of mine was getting married in Spain. And I just met this girl. Like I'd met her like once or twice, but she met a Spaniard, fell in love, was going to get married. And she invited me to her wedding.
Wow.
And I was like, this girl doesn't even know me. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, maybe it was a mistake. Like, why am I on her wedding list? But I was, and I like didn't respond because I was like, no, like I don't know you. And the day of the RSVP, she called me and said, Erica, I haven't heard from you. Are you coming? And it was like, I was like, yes, okay. You know what I mean? Because it was almost like, the fact that she reached out to me
Yes,
again.
personally wanted you there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I didn't know why. I didn't know why, but I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And so I said yes. And then I went. And number one, that friend, Anna, I mean, she is my ride or die. I have known her, I think I counted this like maybe 15 years. And so she has become such a good friend, a sister friend. When I moved to Spain, I had her, like I already had like this community that I had her. And after that, the day after her wedding, I met a Spaniard, fell in love, moved to Spain, had a baby, like all those things that I never thought I was going to do. Like I was going to be single for the rest of my life. I was going to travel the world. That was like my plan. And it's interesting because I was dating somebody in London, Emiliano, and we had just broken up, and that relationship was just so like crazy. I was like, I'm not even going to date anyone for a year. And then 2 days later, I meet Carlos. You know what I mean? So it's, again, I had to say yes to an invitation to kind of like have all this unfold that was not in the plan. And look, and I have a beautiful Cora, my daughter, out of it.
When you follow your intuition, those nudgings, when you listen to spirit, when you see the signs, you often get led exactly where you're meant to be. And that was such a beautiful story. I got emotional. I'm going to be crying. Like, I love that so much. You've told us twice now that you were a lawyer. And we also learned today that lawyers, dramatic 50% of them struggled with depression. Did you find yourself using meditation and other grounding practices when you were a lawyer, or did that get stronger for you after?
Yeah, so depression is real, and anxiety, just like being under like that level of stress. And then as a Black woman, in like boardrooms in New York and London, it's like, it is a lot. It takes a lot. So I did everything. I turned to therapy. I was on depression medication. And I would get away for retreats. So I really got into retreats once I began practicing because I needed like to get away from it all, like from the noise. And so I think I did 2 in Thailand, 1 in Bali, 1 in Puerto Rico. And that's where I think, began to like really cultivate my spiritual life. And it also gave me the courage to walk away from law because every time I was like meditating, my spirit was saying, like, your constitution is not for this, And I was like, no, but I'm gonna get a bonus. You know what I mean? I gotta stick around for that bonus or whatever. So I was kind of fighting against it. But yeah, like I was trying everything at that point because I really wanted to make it work. Like I like saying I was a lawyer. I like saying I have a degree. I felt like that gives me credibility. And so to walk away from that was quite scary. But when you keep getting the same message, it's like, all right, okay, I surrender,
Speaking of which, when did you first realize that your childhood experiences shaped you as an adult? Is that what made you want to be a lawyer? Is that what made you want to accomplish so much? It all usually starts from our childhood. And so when did you first become aware that that is what was shaping you as an adult?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure like my generation, it's like doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, like, you know what I mean? If you're part of that like Black society of like professionals and everything.
Yes.
So I thought I had to be a doctor because my dad's a doctor. Didn't really like science, very sensitive. So I would go like with him to visit his patients and be like emotional for them, not like caring about how their heart was. You know what I mean? Like he's a cardiologist. So one day he was like, Erica, you don't have to be a doctor. And so I kind of just defaulted to lawyer. You know what I mean? And I defaulted, I idealized it. Yeah, I just feel like this is something that I can do where I can be viewed as okay within my tribe.
Wow. You had such great faith because I can imagine that you left what was once a sense of security and leapt into a whole whirlwind of what now brings you to having your own Substack. So tell our viewers where they can find you for more nuggets of wisdom. Yeah, where can they get more of Erica now? Because she's not going to be
It's
our
my
lawyer,
Substack.
okay?
Yeah, I'm not doing that. People always ask, will you go back? I was like, I tend not to look back. So no. Um, but yeah, so my Substack, I think it's Erica Noelle. I don't know if there's a way to like share the link.
Yes, we will
But
do
yeah,
that.
okay, perfect. And yeah, it's basically a place where I muse, I talk about things like this, like mysticism, spirituality, personal growth. But really anything that kind of bubbles up for me, I feel like it's a way for me to have a conversation with like people that I want to be in conversation with, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like you.
Yes, yeah, that was what I was about to say. One of the Substacks that continues to stay with me is your Divine Breadcrumbs. And you spoke about
Mm,
that earlier. And I don't think myself or even those around me realize how many signals and nudges and breadcrumbs are left for us on a daily basis. How would you suggest folks tune in to noticing those divine breadcrumbs?
mm. Yeah. So, one thing, I mean, I feel like getting quiet is like super important because the world is so noisy and we're so bombarded by things everywhere, you know, social media and public and everything. So for me, it's important to get to like a super, super quiet space. Um, Kind of set the tone, maybe some music or something. And then I just get quiet. Like if I have a question, like what should I do? Just get quiet and see what bubbles up. Um, and I tend to write, so I'll have like I'll kind of write my way through it. And I think everybody's different. People might paint their way through it, talk their way through it. I love being in conversation and being like a safe space for people to talk and figure them out or figure their next steps out. But yeah, I just feel like it's quietness. It's quietness so that we can get really still inside to hear. Because I find spirit often whispers, you
And
know.
what do you say to anyone who feels disconnected from their divine whisper or inner guidance system, or doubts that they even have one?
Hmm. I first say it's okay. Like I think like any living, breathing relationship, it's okay to not feel connected. And I'm hoping that by even giving oneself the permission to say, yeah, I don't feel connected right now, frees them up. Because I
Mm,
think, you know, it's so easy to label, judge our inability to connect.
yes.
When we label it, it really blocks us. We're then beating ourselves up the whole time. We're trying to find it. You know what I mean? Like fight our way into it. And so what I say is, listen, it's okay. And we don't know the road, right? So maybe you're meant to meet that connection next week or next month or whatever. It's more about the preparation. Be ready for it, you know? And I think, I don't know if it's going to come for everyone, but I just find that I think being prepared is always helpful. It can't hurt to be prepared, right? So, um,
How do you differentiate between divine delay and divine redirection? Hearing you say that.
hmm, how would you define divine delay?
You're right. There's just divine timing, right? But we often say like delay doesn't mean denied. Like you think something's going to happen and it feels delayed for you, but to your point, there is no delay because there is divine timing, period. So if it is divine timing, it is divine.
Mm,
It
Yeah.
was
I also think
meant to happen, so it did.
I feel like we're living our past self's dreams. Like
mm,
your present self is your past self's dreams. And what you speak now, you'll realize it when your future self gets there. You know what I mean? So
So,
I think it's just processing time. There's no delay. It's just the process to get to that timing, that
yeah.
point where it all
and
makes sense.
and I will say, because I found myself falling into this trap, for me, it's more about like procrastination avoidance versus divine delay. And I've had to like learn how to discern that, because sometimes I will just procrastinate because I don't want to deal with it, or I will avoid, and I can call it, oh, it's divine delay. Not really. It's just me not wanting to do the work, you know what I mean, to get through it. So yeah, that's kind of a bigger trap that I find I fall into, that I have to be really careful about, you know?
I love that you said that, because we do need to stop calling it, again, divine delay, because that's not what it is. If we are living in divine timing, then everything that is meant for us will come at the right time, the right people, the right moment, and it'll be fully aligned. You'll feel good about it. If you're not feeling good about it, it's not meant. And that's what I'm
Exactly.
learning. If I'm not feeling good all the time, then it's not divine, because God is
Mhm.
good. Spirit is good. Not like their personhood is good. No, they are goodness. Okay. And
Mhm.
so I am not feeling good, then it's not divine. And so I just love that you said that, because we really do need to take that out of our language. And to Authentic's point, what we're speaking has power. It is power in the tongue. And so just saying divine delay in itself is not speaking what we should be, right? We are aligned with divine timing always. As a woman of faith and purpose, how do you protect your spiritual energy while continuing to share your light with others?
Mm, yeah, that's really big for me, because I'm a sponge. So, um, like, I feel like I absorb everything. I think it's helpful sometimes, and other times it's not so helpful. And so I have to always kind of keep my emotional temperature, because if I'm fragile, if I'm tired, if, you know, I'm worried about something, I need to be really mindful of the interactions that I have, you know, because if my energy is a bit stinky and then I'm bringing in somebody else's, I collapse. So really, it is kind of giving myself the permission to call myself sacred. And even now, it feels weird for me to say that. You know what I mean? I'm not comfortable saying that to myself. But if I'm sacred, like any altar, right? Like you wouldn't like graffiti an altar and like mistreat it. And so for me, it's saying, no, if this is who I am, I do have a gift of being able to like connect deeply with people. And I need to protect that. I can't just, you know, give it out willy nilly. I need to make sure I'm okay. Like human Erica's okay to do that. Hmm.
Absolutely. And for me, that's, again, getting in quiet bath. I'm quiet for a few days. The do not disturb is absolutely on. And I am mindful of what I'm listening to, what I am allowing to be consumed by me, whether that's visually, auditorially, or even when I'm smelling. Like sometimes something I smell isn't good for me either when I'm really trying to recharge, and I can feel that. Are there any lasting nuggets or divine pieces of wisdom that you'd like to share with us and our audience?
Oh, first, you're okay. Everyone is okay. Even if the world says you're not, you're okay. You're worthy of love, worthy of living the life that you want. You know, I think it's about starting there. And that can be a difficult thing to really internalize, you know? Um, but kind of, you know, to the point that we're talking about, it's by being quiet and being okay with ourselves that we kind of will know what to do. And I just say, don't beat yourself up, because I feel like it's so easy to just criticize, or I'm not where I want to be or where I'm supposed to be and all those things. And the more we can practice being comfortable with that, I think life ends up being okay just because of how we're relating to it, you know? So I would start there. Like, everybody, I'm giving y'all a huge hug. You are okay, you know? So, hmm. Oh, Netta.
Really need to hear that. This faith walk makes you feel like you are not okay, but you are okay. And when you're feeling okay, feel all the feels. Don't stay there. Know that you are protected. Know that Spirit has you, Source, God, whatever you all call your connection to the universe and your connection to a higher power. Know that you are shielded and protected. And I'm just so glad you said that, because I needed to hear that for my own journey. With everything going on, I needed to hear that I'm okay. I needed to hear that it's all right. And just like last time, they've always had me before. And there is comfort and peace in that. Like, just knowing I don't have to figure it out. I think that's where I am now. Like, I need to tell myself, I don't need to know how it's going to work out. I don't need to know how it's going to come to pass. I just know that it's going to come to pass. It's going to be great. It's going to be for my good, and it's going to work out more than I could ask or think. I know that. I just need to stop stressing about how that's going to happen.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, the creator, I really believe the creator can weave everything into a beautiful thing. So, you know, and it's not just woo. I really believe that. And I think it helps with mindset and like what you're saying, just kind of being able to keep going, because the creator can use everything. Whatever happens, the creator's going to use it for good. So, yeah. And you're on the right track, girl. You like launching this podcast and
Yes. I keep telling myself that I do not believe in something that is infinite, that is limitless, and put a cap on it. How dare I? So, yeah, how dare I? Authentic, do you want to lead us into the challenge for our audience?
Yes, let's get to it. Hi, everyone. It is the challenge, and this week's challenge was picked out by Miss Erica. It is our Leap of Faith challenge. Do one small thing this week that your intuition has been nudging you towards, whether it's making a call, starting a project, or saying no to what no longer fits. We all have to do that sometimes. Comment what your leap of faith is and tag hashtag OTWV leap of faith. So make sure you participate in our challenge. Make sure you use our hashtag OTWV leap LEAP and hashtag OTWV. See you in the comments.
Oh, I can't wait to read what happens.
Wait.
Same. Thank you so much for spending time with us. If you don't mind, we would love to take just a moment of silence. We usually just spend a minute doing that. I want to honor that. I just want to honor the space that we've cultivated with this conversation and honor you. And thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom and your small nuggets. So again, you can find her on Substack, Erica Noelle. We'll also pin it here so you can find her and get all of those nuggets. But I'd love to end with a moment of silence, and Authentic will tell us when the minute's over. And which is great, and so humble to have you. We hope you come back and join us again.
Love to. Thank you so much, Meta Authentic. It's been a really nourishing experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's close our eyes and take a collective breath in and exhale.
Ashe, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking this time with us and blessing us with your presence. Yeah, I'm just honored, and I'm excited for what's to come for all of us
Me too.
and our new becomings for sure. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
blessing OTWV with your presence. Let's give it up for Erica. Yay! Yes.
This is Oasis. Tribe with the vibes. Let's grow. Together we thrive. Let's a good vibe flow.